Hello everyone, Gammon here. So an article recently came out and it was titled Anime Executives Reveal How Manga is Taking Over the US Comic Sales. Now, it's no secret that comic book sales have been plummeting at an alarming rate in these past few years, and it would appear that manga and anime sales have gone up drastically. So while I don't disagree that comics are failing and manga seems to be growing, I feel like the article didn't touch on the reasons behind the shift. The main reasons the article gave were Japan's declining birth rate and that the growth is causing bigger players like Netflix to invest in the anime industry. Now, while both of these things are obviously true, Japan is still the main market for anime and manga, and bigger companies getting involved now doesn't really explain, the initial surge of growth that got them interested in the first place. So what are the reasons behind the rise of anime? What does it have that comic books lack? Well, while there are financial reasons, I want to focus on the artistic aspect. And in my opinion, there are three major factors behind the rise of the modern anime industry. Anime has diversity within its medium, it's author driven, and the stories end. Comics actually do have a huge diversity problem. I'm not talking about the character's skin tone, but about the actual genres themselves. Most modern comic books are superhero comics, and the few that aren't usually won't be marketed and die a very quick death. Now, obviously there's a lot you can do under the cape genre, as was shown in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but there are still restrictions within the genre that severely limit the type of stories you can tell. Nowadays, if you look at Western comics, almost everything you see will be capes, and that makes Western comic books a nearly homogeneous genre instead of a medium. Anime is most definitely a medium. And in that medium, you can have a lot of different shows from, a lot of different genres. Now, sure, it has its staple genres. Isekai is huge right now. Shonen is always going to be there, and so are sports and mecha shows. But whether it's inside or outside of these big genres, you're always going to find a lot of diversity in anime, as well as a lot of iterative improvement. Comedy, action, romance. You can do a show centered around, just about anything. And I actually mean that. Apparently one of the shows this season is literally about a girl getting buff. Go get them gains, girl. But it's not just about genres. It's also about each individual story within these genres. Even inside of a single genre like, isekai, you can have completely different shows. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, Rising of the Shield Hero, Konosuba, Sword Art Online, and Vision of Escaflowne are all technically isekai. They're also vastly different from each other. And the reason for that is behind each story, there's usually a single creative, the mangaka. Anime is almost always based off of manga, and manga is written by one man, the mangaka, from start to finish. Now obviously he gets input from the publisher, and obviously he has a team and they can probably give some input as well. But the mangaka is free to ignore this input, sometimes to his own harm, but he is able to create his own vision. The manga is his own creative work. The mangaka's personality, his creative choices are all infused in the work, and that's another part of manga's success. My Hero Academia is Hirokoshi, One Piece is Oda, and for better or worse, Berserk is Miura. Please somebody kill Idolmaster, I want to see this thing finished. And since they're all very different people, it's natural that they'll write and make very different stories. Sadly, one author having directive say from start to finish is definitely not the case in comic books. While obviously each individual comic does have one single writer behind it, the same can't be said for each hero or even an individual run. As an example, let's look at Deadpool. So while Deadpool's visual design was created by Rob Liefeld, the character really came into his own when he was written by Joe Kelly. Joe Kelly started a run of Deadpool comics that lasted for about 67 issues, and for about 33 of these issues, the comic was absolutely terrific and a must-read, highly recommended. But then Joe left to work on other projects, and while the run continued, the quality dropped precipitously. Many other authors tried to recapture the magic Joe had with the character, and I'm afraid they all failed. Whatever it was Joe brought to the character, I don't feel any of the other writers managed to capture it, with perhaps the exception of Fabian, who during the Cable and Deadpool run did a pretty tremendous job. Each author was just inconsistent, either with the character's backstory or his personality or the story's tone. None of them really understood everything that Joe was trying to do, and most of them ended up turning Deadpool into a caricature. It was not good. And the same story repeats itself all across comic books. Heroes that had something special about them when they were written by a specific author, only for the run to go to shit the moment he got replaced. And that's not to say that the person replacing the original author was bad. It's not about bad versus good. It's about consistency, creative vision. It's about keeping the run unique and personal. It's about whatever it was that the original author had, and put into the character that nobody else can put. When you let an author take over someone else's work, you're not just harming the work. The author is now saddled with all of the previous creator's visions and designs, and he's unable to fully express himself. After all, if the new author just expressed himself and completely ignored everything that came before him, well, you'll have The Last Jedi, and you don't really want that. But because every single author has to kind of put himself in somebody else's shoes and is now saddled with years and years of backstory, he is unable to really fully express himself because he's saddled with all of the previous history of the story he's now taking over. And here I suppose we get to the biggest problem in comic books. Deadpool is still being written today, despite the person that made him popular to begin with, Joe Kelly, not having touched the character in multiple decades. Now let's compare that to anime. About a decade ago, three names ruled the shonen genre: One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto. Bleach died in a fairly anticlimactic way. Naruto ended and spawned two new mangas: Samurai 8 by Kishimoto, that was Naruto's mangaka, and Boruto, who's written by Kodachi, who was Kishimoto's head assistant. One Piece is still the king of shonen and will continue to be king of shonen for the foreseeable future. If these were comic books, all of them would still be running, probably under new authors, taking up resources that could have been used to create something new. Without the death of two of the big three, well, we probably wouldn't have the mangas of the new current generation, mangas like Dr. Stone, My Hero Academia, and Black Clover. But comic books don't end. Deadpool, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, they all just keep going. They keep taking up space on the shelves and in the reader's mind. They keep changing authors and reinventing themselves, which probably makes people kind of lose interest in them and make the characters lose what made people like them in the first place. Even new characters in comic books are saddled with the history of other characters. Miles Morales, why is he Black Spider-Man? Why can't he have his own city, his own powers, his own identity, his own hero name? Well, because in comic books, it's not about the author, it's not about the character, it's about the brand. Miles Morales is not important. Spider-Man is important. The brand, Spider-Man, is more important than anything else in Marvel's mind. Do you see how all of these problems kind of feed into each other? The lack of new compelling content, the lack of importance put on authors, and the refusal to end known brands all mix together to create an environment where stagnation is the rule and uniformity is necessary. It limits creativity, and it really harms the creative medium that is comic books, which has unfortunately degraded from a medium into a genre. When you think about it, it's no wonder comics fail to adapt and compete with the fresh new IPs that are coming from names that really meant nothing just a few years ago. My Hero Academia may be big now, but it just came out like 5 years ago. Before that, nobody even knew who Hirokoshi was. And what mangas are coming out now that will be giant in 5 years? Nobody knows, but I can tell you right now what comics will be big 5 years from now. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. It's always going to be them. There's never going to be a fresh new kid or a fresh new perspective because the old ones refuse to die, and I don't know how to solve this. In the end, I think it can all summed up in one sentence. Comics are brand driven and mangas are offer driven. And so long as this continues, I personally don't see the Western comic industry recovering. And that's a real shame, because there are some comics that I absolutely adored. Transmetropolitan, Preacher, Punisher Max, the original run of Deadpool, these were all phenomenal reads. They're all highly recommended. But they're all an exception to the rule. You have to really dig in comic books to find the good stuff, and even then it's really rare, and it's becoming rarer and rarer as time continues. There are clearly incredibly talented people working in the Western comic book industry, and I just really wish they were giving a shot to really express themselves and show the world what they can do. But honestly, I don't see that happening. Anyway, that should be enough for now. Thanks for watching.